Hey everybody, I am Cinnamon Cooney, your art Sherpa, and believe it or not, I'm bringing you a painting that is great for new painters. This is a great first painting. It's a gorgeous girl in the rain that you can do today with me in well under an hour with just a few materials. So let's check out that materials list and get started right now. Now that we know what we need, let's get started with this really easy project. Here's my 9x12 pre-gessoed canvas board ready to paint. I don't need to do another thing to it. Here I have white gesso and black gesso, and I have naphthol red medium, but honestly you could use any white paint, any black paint, and any red paint you have to succeed at this painting. I've got a 2-inch brush here, and this has a bristle in it, which I really like for my scratchy rain effect. You can get these in a lot of locations. I'm really fond of this one. I'm going to load my brush up right here with this white paint to about here, and you can see because it's very soft and goopy with the gesso, I can really get that into my brush, and I'm going to come and get just a smidge of black paint. See how it's just on the edges here? This is really going to get into this color. I'm going to come from the upper right corner and I'm going to make a brush stroke down to the lower left corner just like this. Look at this. Making that rain. See how easy that is to do? And all I've got to do is just try to follow a nice diagonal line so that I get that good effect. I'm going to come here, load up some white, maybe on the little edges of my bristles, get a couple spots with black. I try to treat my black paint, my black color, a bit like cayenne pepper because it's easy for it to overwhelm everything around it. Just making that nice rain streak. That's not hard. You can totally do that. Let me get some more paint. Load back up. Here we go. And just finish this out to this corner. So all you got to do is just finish that out to this corner. This is a good time to see if you have any holes or open areas that need a little more paint. I'm going to load up with some white. Make sure I get a little of this black and come back over, just making sure that my canvas is completely covered. Now a cool thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of wipe off my brush here into my towel. You can see just getting any moisture or paint out of it. And it's also sort of fluffy. You see how like scrumbly and fluffy that is? I'm going to just dab it into the paint. And I don't want it as soaked before. I want it to be sort of really just kind of a hot mess. And I'm going to come here and just in the lower corners, I'm going to dab up some rain splashing back up. I don't go far up the canvas. I don't go up more than really 3 fingers or so. And I dab in and strike up. Just creating this little highlight. Just making sure I'm giving that feeling of hard weather, and I'm letting a lot of that canvas show through. Now let your canvas dry out completely. You can hair dry it if you like, and I'm going to show you how, like I said at the beginning, drawing does not necessarily have to be a part of painting. I'm going to show you how to transfer the image onto the canvas super easy. When my canvas is dry, I'm ready to create my easy DIY traceable that I can transfer onto my canvas. Let me show you how I do it. So right here, I drew out my design onto tracing paper, but you at home are welcome to go get my free printable. That is at TheArtSherpa.com. You can locate that anytime and just use it. You'll find it's real easy and ready to go. But I drew this out on my tracing paper. You use the printout, and I have the image on this side. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to take a pencil. And I'm going to use a very basic rubbing method to create transfer paper. Okay, now it's ready, and all I've got to do is fix it to my canvas with low tack tape. So low tack tape is tape that won't really tear or peel your paint. I would say in this particular instance, don't be too worried about it if it's going to tear your traceable, because you're not going to be reusing it over and over again. But definitely tape it so it can't move on you. This is key. That's the hardest thing when you're trying to transfer an image to a canvas about it, is that it moves. Now, I'm going to use this very bright gel pen. But what I'll say is you want something that you can see the color of and that gives you a hard edge. So a felt tip pen wouldn't be very useful. You definitely want something with a roller ball or a colored pencil that has a hard lead. Let's get that on. Once I have that all traced over, then I can remove the image and I'm going to see a faint impression of what I drew there. Something that I get asked a lot is tracing cheating, and I always say no for two reasons. One is drawing is just an art skill. It's one of many that we pull together as artists to use in our toolkit, but we don't always develop these skills at the same time at the same rate. And of course there are many art practices that never involve drawing at all. And number two, as an artist, I like to work out my designs on tracing paper, resolve them, and then transfer them to canvas. So that's something that we as artists do all the time. So no, in my opinion, tracing is in no way cheating. It's just an art skill you can use today. It's great to learn drawing. But if you're not drawing yet, don't let that stop you from painting. Let's see how we did on the transfer. So we have our image transferred on the canvas and we're ready to paint in the rest of the girl. Now mostly she's a silhouette, which means I'm going to be just painting her in with my black paint. But she has these gorgeous red boots, red scarf, and umbrella. So I'm going to want to make sure that I do a little extra work there before I put in that fun final rain effect. So I'm going to pick a brush that's going to let me put in the silhouette easily. This is a number 4 braid. A braid is shorter than a flat and it gives me a lot more control, and I like this because it has a sharp edge. But mostly what I'm looking for is just to find a brush that gives me control when I'm filling in my silhouette. I'm going to load my black paint on the edge of the bristles and I'm going to paint in my silhouette. This technique would work with any silhouette that you were excited about on the internet. I'm just using the edge of my brush to give myself nice crisp lines. Sometimes I can paint on the edge like this to get a very thin line. And sometimes I paint on the flat to get a very flat wide line to cover a lot of paint. Now I'm not going to paint the thickness of the dress much past here because I'm going to want to blow it in the wind and I want to have a lot of delicate line. So if I go too much past the elbow, maybe like a finger, finger and a half past the elbow, that leaves me lots of room to create some flurry and wind blowing through her dress. I'm working all these blowing lines on the edge of my braid, and that's how I'm getting these gorgeous kind of flowy bits that go out into the wind. And that's how I get that feeling that the dress is going right into that wind. You could also, if you want to, go on the flat and just let it taper out like this, where the edges seem more solid. Whatever makes you happy artistically. Just working the brush, trying to get this sense of hard breeze going. That's really nice, and I like that. I'm going to paint in her legs. I did imagine that she was wearing leggings when I created this. Come along this umbrella. I'm going to do the hair. Now the hair is going to be even more wispy than whatever I did with the dress. I'm going to have it go longer over here. I might even have it come down the scarf a good bit. Come here and pull it out. Just make a lot of little wavy hairs. Keeping this on the edge of my brush. I might even take a little hair down here and blow it between the scarves. My trick here is I just want a hair story that I'm fond of. A lot of little hairs that are blowing in the wind. Alright, look for any holes in the area that don't have a nice solid flat black to them. And the next thing I'm going to do is paint in the base of the umbrella and the base of the boots in the scarf. And how I'm going to do that is wipe this brush off. Get the extra paint off of it. You could also rinse it out in your water, but I have a little black pigment on here still. And I'm going to mix a little of this black pigment into my red paint. I don't want to use too much because I don't want it to be black, but I want it to be a deep dark red that I can really see. And I'm going to paint in my umbrella with this dark red first, following along the lines that I created on my transfer. Every once in a while I dip in my water, but I don't soak my brush because I don't want to add too much water to my paint. That could give me a lot of trouble. But I need enough to make sure that it's flowing. Now I made a little boo-boo here. I'm going to show you how I'd fix that and how you can fix any mistake that you make in your painting. But first I have to let it dry. So I'm going to paint in my red boots while I'm waiting for that to happen. And we'll go back and I'll show you how you can correct a mistake like that. Now when I'm painting in this boot, I'm going to leave out the tracing information I have on the heel, because that's a lot of what tells my mind that this is a boot, and I'm going to have to put that all in blacks and grays, which will be perfect for when I'm going to fix this boo-boo up here. Let's paint in the red scarf, the little peak of red that's happening right here, where it's wrapped around her neck, keeping her warm. And then the bit that's blowing off into the wind as well. Also in this black and red color. is a great time to assess if you have any boo-boos, and if you did, you want to make sure that they're dry because it can be really hard to fix any mistakes in acrylic paint while the paint is still wet. But once it's dry, you can pretty much paint over or repair anything. I'm going to rinse out my brush really, really well because I don't want any red in it at all. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to load it with a little of the white paint and a little of the black paint. And just come here very carefully. Here I am trying to follow that brush stroke. Was making the streaks. Just repair that boo-boo. Mistakes in art happen. The difference between artists that have been painting for a while and artists that are new is that if you've been painting for a while, you recognize that it's pretty easy to fix mistakes. I've got another little one right here. Interestingly enough, this one fixes by getting into my black paint and making a shadow. Come underneath where her feet are. I'm going to paint a tapering little shadow that tapers down on the edge of the brush. It's going to be longer at the top and taper down. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my detail brush out, get my shoe in and some detail on my umbrella, and then I'm going to get to the next part to finish this out. Now it's time to put in those oh so easy details that really start to bring a painting together. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to get some black paint on the tip of a detail brush. This is a number 0 round, but what you're looking for is anything with a very small fine tip. And I'm going to come and put the rib in to my umbrella. Just painting a fine line, adding those ribs. I'm going to do one right here at the top of the umbrella. Now remember, if you have an oops, you can always let it dry and paint it out. Sometimes I find it's easier to start at the bottom and arc up, but everybody's different. And you should always listen to yourself if something is uncomfortable or comfortable, especially as a new painter. I'm going to bring this rib in. Come over here and bring this one rib in. Alright, so I have those nice ribs painted in. So I'm going to make a dark, dark gray. You don't want it to be black and you don't want it to be very light. This is that C at the top of the heel that gives it some shape and some lift. And I'm going to paint in another gray heel over here. Comes up just a sliver and it's planted into the shadow. It's just slightly lighter than the shadow. I'm going to wipe off or rinse out my brush and paint the rest of this in black. So there's the inner C, and then you'll notice that it is wide at the bottom and kind of curves into the C. People don't think about it, but there's a real hourglass shape to a foot. Alright, once I have that in, I can wipe off on my paper towel, on my towel, my black paint, but I don't want to get it all off because I want to make a highlight. And you're going to put that light gray highlight right here. Maybe another little dab of one there. And then go ahead and put one right here. It's going to make a big difference later. Now you can take a little of this black over to your red. And this can even be darker than what you did before, but you don't want it all the way black. And on the left side of the boots, you're going to make just slightly, ever so slightly, the hint of a bit of a shadow. That can be something that's a little hard to see in a storm, but there's still a light source. And so these are good to add. So this is, I don't go very far back. I'm going to be coming with a very bright red highlight over the top of all of this, and it's going to bring it all together. If you were ever fond of painting shows where things sort of come together almost magically, this will be that, your magic moment in a painting. Everybody has a magic moment, and probably for you it will be when we get to put the red highlight in. Alright, now that we have our boots all ready to go, we're going to go back to our number 4 bright. We're going to get that bright red, just the pure pigment. Isn't that fabulous? And I'm going to come in. I'm going to just paint in my umbrella. I don't have a lot of water on my brush, and I'm letting a lot of what's underneath show through. Right, because I don't want to paint out all these rich burgundy tones that I worked so hard to get. I'm not going to paint out my black umbrella ribs. And again, you want what's underneath the painting to show through. This is where acrylic paint is kind of king, and I love it for what it does. There we go. Open your, just getting that in. Hope you're already starting to see how a painting like this just almost magically comes together. When people come to watch me paint live, they're always so excited to see that point in the painting where it just appears. Every acrylic painting for every artist has kind of a crazy, messy stage. Stage that makes you question the decision to start painting. That's true for me and other artists, and that might be true for you. And it's this moment here, this really special moment, that answers the question why you started this project up in the first place. Now I'm going to put these pops on the scarf. It is the contrast between the dark paint and the pure pigment that really make the red of a painting pop. And again, any red you have, reds can be very orange or very purple. The trick is that it is the black and the white and the red that bring the drama to the piece. Don't paint out all of those little dark highlights. Now to the boots. This is my favorite part. So I'm going to come over here on the right side of the boot, and I'm going to just bring this bright red, really focus it right here. Maybe a little bit down, just a smidge. Isn't that just wonderful? Just really pulls these beautiful urban rain boots together. I don't take out my shadow all the way. I wouldn't want to. I'm going to do the same thing right here. Just pull over a little bit of this red. across the boot, sort of dabbing and brushing that in. I don't want to make a completely even line. I want my line to be kind of uneven and painterly. I love when the boots come together. And I really feel them in this stormy day. Well, now that I have her in this far, I've got to dry her completely. When you're sure that everything is good and dry, you can proceed to the next step, which is a ton of fun. I'm going to go back and get the brush that I started this whole journey with. And I'm going to make sure it's real dry. Make sure your brush is dry. Sometimes when you put these in water, they can over soak water. So you've always got to check the moisture level, that they are just damp, but not like holding water like a sponge. And I'm going to grab just a little bit of this paint and put it sort of on this edge here. You see how this is just sort of on the edge of my brush? And I'm going to come here and I'm going to add another scramble of paint. I'm even going to put a little bit over that boot. You see I put a titch over the boot and a little bit on the shadow, scrambling the paint. This is the splash up that's happening from this storm. And then I'm going to, just on the tip of the bristles, but stamping it out. Look, I'm going to stamp it out a little bit because I don't want it soaked in. They need to be very broken up and dry. I'm going to repeat that diagonal brush stroke. I'm going to have a very light pressure, super light, as if I'm just barely touching the canvas, because I don't want to paint out what I have. Just across. Just letting the rain fall down. I'm going to flip my brush because I don't want to even reload. And come across here. Just making sure I'm dropping a dry amount. Just a little bit. Just so that she's in the rain. Now you can really see she's in that storm. But she's got her red boots on, so it's going to be okay. I hope you had a lot of fun, and I hope that you surprised yourself with what you can actually do in art, and that this is either one of many paintings you're already doing or the first of many paintings to come. Be good to yourselves, be optimistic about your potential, and I want to see you at the easel really soon. Bye-bye!